Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel in today's episode. In the previous episode, Diep's life truly took a turn she herself had never dared to imagine. After decades of living with unanswered questions, after countless moments of wondering who she was, where she came from, and why fate had arranged such a life of absence and longing, Diep finally found her biological mother. That reunion was not loud or showy, yet it was powerful enough to shake the deepest emotions within her heart. A single glance, a gentle of hands, a hesitant call caught in her throat, all were enough to awaken memories that had seemed asleep for decades. In that moment, Diep felt as though she were pulled back into her own childhood, a time when she always sensed a great absence, even if she could not name it. The years of growing up in silence, with questions no one could answer, with an aching desire to know her roots, all of it came rushing back at once, overlapping and colliding, making her heart ache and tremble with emotion. It was an overwhelming happiness, yet also a profound lump in her throat, because behind that brief reunion lay a long journey of loss, separation, and quiet sacrifices that Diep was only just beginning to understand. That meeting, once thought to exist only in distant dreams, opened before Diep a truth she had never been ready to face. It was not simply about finding the woman who gave birth to her, but about a direct collision with the past, a past filled with wounds, regrets, and the harsh choices imposed by fate. Every word spoken, every tear shed during that encounter carried the weight of time, of years lost that could never be reclaimed. And it was precisely this weight that made that happiness more fragile than ever, for Diep understood that from this moment on, her life would no longer be the same. Before the joy of finding her biological mother could even settle, conflicting thoughts and unresolved concerns began to surface in Diep's heart. Because when a door that has been sealed for years suddenly opens, it also means another door is quietly beginning to close. Diep stood on a fragile boundary between past and present, between what she had just discovered and what she already had. Every step from this point forward would no longer be simple, for behind her stood not only herself, but also little Nee, the child she loved as her own, and James, the man who had walked beside her through so many of life's ups and downs. And from that very moment, Diep realized that this reunion would not change only her life, but would also quietly affect those around her. New emotions emerged, unanswered questions lingered, and responsibilities she had never prepared herself to shoulder began to weigh heavily on her heart. She understood that happiness is not always just about reclaiming what was lost, but also about having the courage to face the consequences that come with it. And in today's episode, while her emotions have yet to fully settle, Diep will be forced to confront a crucial choice, one that will not only shape her own life, but could completely alter the future of little Nee and James as well. It is a decision that, no matter which path she chooses, will require sacrifice and acceptance of certain losses. Caught between love and responsibility, between a past she has only just reclaimed and a present she holds dear, Diep must step across the greatest crossroads of her life, and no one else can make that decision for her. The next morning, as sunlight filtered softly through the crack of the door, Diep had not yet managed to gather her scattered thoughts when a gentle knock sounded. She opened the door, and there stood her mother. Unlike the exhausted, fragile appearance of the day before, today she looked far more composed and neat. Her hair was carefully combed, her clothes clean and simple yet tidy, and her eyes shone with a clearer light, as if she had carefully prepared herself for this very moment. There was no longer any hesitation or confusion, only a gentle but steady determination hidden behind her familiar, kind smile. "Diep," she spoke softly and slowly, as if afraid that raising her voice even slightly might cause the fragile moment to shatter. "Today, I want to take you and little Nee out. Just for one day, so I can make up, even if only a tiny bit, for the years we lost." Her voice did not tremble, yet within each word lingered a trace of emotion. This was not merely a casual suggestion, but the offering of an entire lifetime of waiting, of years in which she had never truly had the chance to be beside her daughter as a mother should. Diep froze at the doorway. In that instant, she did not know how to respond. The joy of being cared for, of having her mother want to make amends, warmed her heart, but along with it came an unavoidable sense of nervousness and unease. She had dreamed of this moment, dreamed of mornings being woken by her mother's voice, of going out together like other families. Yet when it truly arrived, Diep suddenly realized that her life was no longer hers alone. Alongside the biological mother she had just found, she now had a new family, a life deeply intertwined with James and little Nie. Their presence made her feel fulfilled, yet also afraid that any choice she made now might unintentionally hurt one of the people she loved. Diep stood still, her gaze wavering slightly. She wanted to nod immediately, to seize this rare opportunity to be with her mother and fill, at least partially, the void left by the past. But at the same time, a vague worry rose within her. Would this make James and little Nie feel abandoned, and would the return of her biological mother disrupt the life she had worked so hard to build? These thoughts tangled together, making it impossible for Diep to make a decision as easily as she had once imagined. James stood nearby, quietly observing everything. He did not speak right away, only looked at Diep and then at her mother, as if trying to fully absorb the atmosphere filling the room. More than anyone else, James understood the significance of the blood bond Diep had lacked her entire life. He knew that no matter how much love they shared, what Diep had just regained was something irreplaceable. And although he could not completely avoid a faint, subtle worry that the return of the past might bring unpredictable changes, James chose silence, choosing instead to listen and to understand. After a brief pause, he smiled gently, his voice low and warm as always. "I think the three of you should spend some time together." There was no reluctance, no hint of reproach, just a simple sentence filled with respect and deep empathy. It was James's quiet way of placing Diep's happiness above his own concerns, and also his way of showing that no matter what happened, he would remain there, willing to step back so the woman he loved could finally experience what she had been missing her entire life. Diep stepped into a luxurious shopping mall together with her mother and little Nie, a place she had never once imagined she would set foot in. From the very moment the automatic glass doors slid open, the warm golden lights flooding the vast space made her instinctively slow her steps. Rows of elegant storefronts stretched along both sides, large glass windows reflecting shimmering light, all unfolding before her like an entirely different world, foreign and overwhelming. Diep felt as though she were walking into a place that did not belong to her, where everything seemed too refined, too perfect compared to the hard-working, simple life she had known for so many years. She gently tightened her grip on her mother's hand, her heart filled with both curiosity and hesitation, as if a single misstep might shatter this beautiful scene. In stark contrast to Diep's unease, little Nie was brimming with excitement. The moment she spotted the brightly colored children's play area, she squealed with delight and tugged at her grandmother's hand, pulling her forward. The vivid games, floating balloons, and cheerful music sent Nie into fits of laughter. Her clear, innocent giggles echoed through the wide space, somehow making everything feel warmer. Every smile, every carefree run of the little girl seemed to touch the heart of a grandmother who had lost her daughter for so many years. Watching her grandchild play, Diep's mother could not hide her emotion. A gentle smile spread across her face, one filled with happiness, yet tinged with an indescribable ache, as if every moment before her was something she had dreamed of for a very long time. While little Nie was immersed in her own colorful world, Diep's mother held her daughter's hand tightly. The grip was anything but casual, it carried a quiet fear, as though letting go for even a second might cause Diep to disappear once again, just as she had through all those years of regret. She led Diep from store to store, carefully choosing clothes for Nie with meticulous attention to every small detail. From colors and fabrics to sizes, she asked thoughtfully each time, her eyes overflowing with care and love. Each item selected was not merely a piece of clothing, but seemed to hold within it a fragment of the years she had never been able to spend by her daughter's and granddaughter's side, fulfilling her role as a true mother and grandmother. When Diep's mother guided her into a high-end dress boutique, Diep instinctively slowed her steps. The interior was quiet and elegant, with dresses displayed neatly and tastefully, each one radiating a beauty Diep had never imagined herself reaching for. She hesitated, her eyes drifting over the exquisite gowns before quickly lowering her gaze. A familiar sense of self-consciousness rose within her. Those dresses were too beautiful, too polished, too distant from the life of hardship she had endured. She was used to simple, practical clothes, just enough to wear, and had never dared to think of dressing herself in something so refined. Yet, gently urged on by her mother, Diep stepped into the fitting room. When she stood before the mirror, the reflection staring back at her made her almost fail to recognize herself. Gone was the woman who always lowered her head in quiet insecurity, hiding behind plain clothes to avoid the gaze of others. In her place stood a softer, more feminine Diep, her eyes filled with surprise as she realized she, too, could look this beautiful. The dress highlighted features she had never noticed before, leaving her standing still, her heart beating faster with emotion. Diep's mother stood behind her, silently watching her daughter in the mirror. Her eyes glistened with tears, her gaze trembling as if she were trying to memorize every second. "My daughter, you're so beautiful," she whispered softly, her voice low yet brimming with emotion. Those words were more than a compliment, they were an acknowledgement, a belated pride from a mother who had missed too many years of her child's life. Hearing them, Diep felt her throat tighten, a warmth mixed with a quiet ache swelling in her chest, feelings she could not fully put into words. That evening, the three of them had dinner at a high-rise restaurant overlooking the brightly lit city below. From above, the streams of cars looked like flowing ribbons of light, creating a scene that was both lively and peaceful. Diep's mother could barely take her eyes off her daughter and little Nie. She studied every small gesture, every smile, every ordinary moment, as if afraid that even a brief distraction might cause those images to slip away. To her, this dinner was not just a meal, but a late attempt to make up for the years they had never been able to sit together at the same table. Before the long day came to an end, Diep's mother took her and little Nie to the upscale apartment where she was temporarily staying. As the door opened, a quiet, orderly space appeared, everything neatly arranged with refined care. Soft lighting and modern furnishings created a surprisingly peaceful atmosphere. To Diep, it all felt too perfect, so different from the life she had always known. She stood still in the middle of the room, a hard-to-name feeling rising within her, both warm and unsettled, as if she were standing between two worlds, one side her familiar past, the other a new reality she had not yet learned how to belong to. When the car slowly came to a stop in front of James's house, the atmosphere inside suddenly grew heavy in an inexplicable way. Streetlights filtered through the window, casting their glow across Diep's quiet face in the back seat, her eyes still holding the lingering echoes of a long, emotionally overwhelming day. Before Diep could open the door and step out, her mother suddenly tightened her grip on her daughter's hand. That hold no longer carried the gentle warmth of earlier, it was tense, hesitant, as if she were trying to keep Diep there just a little longer, or perhaps restraining her own trembling. Her voice dropped, slower and more serious than ever. "Diep." Just hearing her name was enough to make Diep freeze. "I want to take you and little Nie abroad to live with me." The words struck the silence like a bolt of lightning, sudden and stunning, leaving Diep unable to react. All the warmth and tenderness she had felt throughout the day instantly wavered, like a beautiful painting torn apart by a single harsh stroke. Diep stood motionless, her hand still in her mother's grasp, yet seemingly numb. Her heart tightened, her breathing grew heavy, and her mind went blank for a few brief seconds that felt endlessly long. A new life unfolded in her thoughts, a more secure, more abundant future where little Nee could grow up with the best opportunities, receive proper education and care, protected from the hardships Diep herself had endured. Her reason quickly recognized it as a chance many people would dream of, a promising path opening wide for her daughter's future. But immediately after, a painful question pierced her heart like a blade: what about James? The moment his name surfaced in her mind, Diep felt her throat tighten. James, the man who had stood by her during her darkest days, who had reached out to pull her from loneliness and despair, who had given her a home, a family, and a sense of belonging. Before she could organize the chaos of her thoughts, James stepped out of the house just then. The light at the gate illuminated his familiar figure, and with just one exchanged glance, he understood everything. No explanation was needed, no questions asked. James simply looked into Diep's eyes, eyes filled with conflict, pain, and confusion. He immediately knew she was facing the most difficult choice of her life, one where no matter what she decided, wounds would inevitably remain. James stayed silent, neither stepping closer nor backing away, as if deliberately keeping just enough distance for Diep to breathe, to think, to confront the truth she had just heard. That night, after everything had settled, Diep lay on the bed holding little Nee tightly in her arms. The steady rhythm of her daughter's breathing against her chest warmed her heart even as it ached. In the quiet darkness, Diep could clearly feel the weight of the choice pressing down on her. On one side was her biological mother, who had waited an entire lifetime for her, living in regret and remorse for years in the hope of one day making amends. On the other was James, the man not bound to her by blood, yet who had become her strongest support, the one who had built a home with her from the simplest beginnings. Diep closed her eyes, her arms tightening around little Nee as if afraid that loosening her grip for even a moment might cause everything she had to disappear. In her heart, the two paths before her had never been clearer, yet they were so far apart that she did not know which one to take. That night passed slowly, heavy with turmoil and longing, marking the moment Diep truly stood at the greatest crossroads of her life, where there was no longer right or wrong, only choices and the inevitable losses that came with them. In the living room, James sat silently beneath the dim glow cast by an old table lamp. The space was so quiet that he could hear his own slow breathing, the faint ticking of the clock marking each passing second in the late night. He didn't turn on any more lights, didn't switch on the television, and didn't do anything to chase away the stillness that had settled over the house. He simply sat there, his hands clasped together, his gaze fixed on an undefined point ahead, where his thoughts quietly followed one another without end. No words were exchanged. Diep was in the bedroom, James in the living room, each in a separate space, yet both keenly aware of the other's presence. The silence between them was not gentle, it was heavy, pressing against the chest like an invisible weight. It was not the silence of anger or resentment, but the silence of two people trying to face a truth too vast, too painful, to know where to begin putting it into words. James understood that the moment he spoke, the moment he asked a question, everything could change. But he didn't dare. He was afraid that asking would only push Diep into an even more difficult position, afraid that his words might become an added burden that caused her more pain. He chose silence, not out of indifference, but out of love. A love deep enough to know when to hold back his own feelings, even as his heart quietly fractured bit by bit. Meanwhile, inside the small bedroom, Diep continued to hold little Nee close in her arms. She knew James was sitting out there. She could feel that silent presence, like a reminder that needed no words. With every passing second, the tearing conflict in her heart grew clearer. She had never imagined that the day she found her biological mother, the day that should have been filled with pure joy, would become the beginning of such a long night. A night in which happiness and pain coexisted, tightly entwined, impossible to separate. Both of them, though not sharing the same space, were living through the longest night of their lives. A night without loud tears, without heated arguments, only quiet thoughts gnawing at the heart. Each of them understood that when the sun rose, nothing would be the same again. A choice would have to be made, and that choice would change everything. Would Diep choose to go with her biological mother, the woman who had waited a lifetime for her, who could offer Diep and little Nie a new future, a safer and more abundant life? Or would she stay with James, the man who had held her hand through her darkest days, who had built a home with her from the simplest yet most sincere things? Would little Nie step into an entirely new future, filled with open opportunities ahead, or continue the life she knew, one marked by familiar hardships but rich in love and deep bonds? And would love, sacrifice, and everything they had been through together be strong enough to keep them united when fate placed them at a crossroads no one had wished for? All of those questions still hung suspended in the darkness of the night, unanswered. And the answer to this cruel choice will gradually be revealed in the next episode. Don't miss it.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Cảm ơn mọi người đã theo dõi và ủng hộ cho video của mình nhé. Tạm biệt mọi người. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo.